Really surprised to see so many people here this evening. If you can't hear, please let me know. Can you hear in the back?
Yes.
And I wonder what you're all here for. I'm here because I was repeatedly invited by this Zen Center to come and speak and hold a retreat. So here I am. What is everybody here for? In coming to talk here, I was not asked for a particular topic. I just found out during the introduction what I was to talk about. I haven't prepared anything because a good deal of time should be left for you to ask questions. The introduction said something like, Toni is going to talk about the practice of seeing without knowing. There is no such practice. Maybe before talking a little bit about practice and seeing without knowing, if we get to it, can we start out by saying a few words about listening to a talk, such as this, to words being spoken by someone who sits on a little podium? How is one listening? And what is the talk all about? The talk that is given is not a lecture conveying, transmitting information, data, facts to be remembered, stored up in the mind so that they may come in handy in the future. The reason that the talk is given is so that we can look at something together, attend and question something together right now. And in that there is no doctrine or information transmitted. It is looking at the workings of our own mind, which we all share, whether we are here in this room, in this country, on this continent, or throughout all the continents of this world. We all share fundamentally, basically, principally the same human mind. A mind that is filled and beset and compelled and controlled and attracted by thinking, that is conditioned by thinking, by thoughts. And we're looking at that thinking, we're questioning thinking as it occurs. Not just in my mind, but in the human mind. So how is one listening to the talk, to the words that are spoken? Is one eager, waiting to compare what this person says to what the last person who gave a talk said, or what one's own teacher or past teachers have said? At that moment, the mind is engaged in comparison, in memory, comparing words with memories, and there's no listening to what is being said right now. A different mode, if we liken the brain to a computer, a different mode is switched on, the memory comparison mode, which is not the listening mode, at least not the listening that is being talked about here. An open listening that does not compare, that does not approve or disapprove, but listens and looks at what the words are pointing at, directly, immediately. Is that possible? It was mentioned in the introduction that this talk was about authority. Let me say from the very outset that I do not see myself as any kind of an authority. I do not see myself as a teacher. A teacher teaches something, a topic, a subject matter, a skill, or a doctrine. What we're doing here is to look at how this mind works from moment to moment. And we're doing this together. This moment, not talking from memory, but looking now. And in that there's no authority, because no one can look for you. You have to look yourself. You have to listen yourself. I cannot listen for you. Cannot see for anybody else. No matter what is being said here, you must hear it for yourself. You must see for yourself whether what is being said is actually so. So what is said here does not require or request or demand any kind of belief or following. How could it? It's up to each one of us to understand how this mind is working, to understand the whole process of self, me, mine, the image I have of myself, how I want to hold on to it, make it permanent, aggrandize it, or shrink it, diminish it, get rid of it. This is going on in all human beings. Can one see it for oneself? This process of me and mine, what I want, what I am, what I want to become, and the defense of that, the attachment to it, the fear for it. There's no belief in that. There's nothing to believe, there is to see for oneself. This morning, as I opened the curtains at home, the sun was shining bright. It hadn't been shining for a long time in Buffalo. This morning, there it was. There was no need to believe in it. It was there. And the moon was just setting. It was an incredible sight. Out the other window, this huge golden moon about to set. No belief necessary. You could see it. It's there. Somebody telling you it's not there, well, that's that person's opinion. You can see for yourself. So, are we capable of listening without influence by what we have heard, what we have learned, what we are attached to, what we believe in? It's much easier said than done. What it needs is to see how we are influenced by what we have learned, what we believe and what we have been told, what we are attached to. and to see, to discover for oneself how this fragments and narrows the vision, the listening. To really question something and look at it freshly, newly, can one put aside all opinions about it, all beliefs and ideas, and look anew? To see attachment. We don't want to see it because we are at ease or feel somewhat safe in our attachments. We don't want to question them because immediately there's a surge of insecurity if we begin to question something or somebody we're attached to. And yet we are attached because we're afraid of standing alone. We're afraid of loneliness. And out of that fear, there comes attachment. But in the attachment to a person, an idea, a religion, a teacher, in that attachment, even though there is temporary safety and security, there's still fear. I may lose it, and that fear surfaces when the attachment is questioned, when it's rattled, shaken. And then, can one be in touch with that fear? Really face it, feel it, be that fear? Or does one immediately seek to strengthen the attachment, or if this one crumbles, look for a new one? A new relationship, a new teacher, a new religion, a new ideology. And never really be face to face with this fear of loneliness, which we have never lived with, unimpeded, unprotected, face to face, directly, nakedly. So fear continues to beset human lives everywhere. All human beings are afraid. Afraid of standing alone, afraid of losing, afraid of not having, afraid of not being or of not becoming something. And out of that fear, attach themselves to groups, ideologies, religious beliefs, and look at what is going on in the world. The almost incessant mutual killings, terrorizing, harassing. So here, sitting together as a group of people coming from many different backgrounds, maybe traditions, can one meet as human beings? At the place of work, in traveling, in being with people in different quarters, can one meet and see each other as human beings? I don't mean the idea of a human being, but meet as human beings, not as somebody. Meeting somebody, having him or her categorized according to race, religion, ideology, nationality. Some of these tendencies in us lie very deeply buried. We may say on the surface, I am not like that, I'm not prejudiced, I embrace all humanity. Is that really so? Is one really as nobody, not identified with any flag or symbol or group or idea? Which one will rush to defend once there is attack on it? Can one begin to glimpse the relationship between what is going on in the world at large and in oneself and in one's small-scale relationships with one's wife, husband, children, one's boss at work, or the people who work for one? How does one see them? See them according to what we have known about them for years or days? Then you don't see. Then you only see the memory. There's a screen in this brain like on a computer, and the memory is triggered very quickly, unless this is seen to be so, and one looks again without that screen. To look at a human being as though for the first time. One may have known each other for years, and of course we recognize each other. That memory is necessary. But for the minimal memory that's necessary, can we meet each other freshly, from moment to moment, from day to day, leaving aside what happened in the past, even though it comes up, there it is, accompanied by anger or wanting the same favors or the same flattery, seeing that and being free of it in the seeing, and meeting each other freshly. Just imagine what relationships in this world would be like if this was possible. If people saw the absolute necessity for this to happen, if we are to live with each other in peace and harmony, and with lovingness and compassion. But this is not, mind you, this is not setting up an ideal. We have enough, we have too many ideals already. And ideals cloud the direct seeing. If you have an ideal of how this person should be or how I should be in seeing, then you don't notice all the images that are there. You don't see the screen that is there because you're now absorbed in the ideal. So can we minutely, carefully, lovingly observe how we relate to each other from moment to moment? How we live, talk, think, act. See it, not judge it, not wanting to immediately correct it, condemn it, or accept it. That narrows this, then there's no seeing. Then there's again the memory of ideals controlling, no seeing. How does one listen to the footsteps through the room? Brushing of the cloth against the floor. that sound, the mind immediately names them, doesn't it? This is a person coming in late, or this is a door closing. And the brain doesn't only name, this is a door. There's also a reaction. Why does that have to be there? That's a disturbance. I don't like it, or I don't mind it. All of that is not this listening without knowing. It is a fraction of an instant of listening, and then immediately the naming, the knowing, and the reacting with like and dislike. The enclosure in the little computer room with one's little screen there. Many people these days are complaining about the difficulty of just sitting in front of a computer terminal all day long, just punching in and living with this computer in artificial light. But when we go home, we may turn that internal computer isn't even needs to be turned on, it's on. We're in that room, in that dark room most of the time, just living with our memories, reactions, likes and dislikes, and spinning a web around ourselves all the time, a cocoon. Can one see that at an instant? At that instant, what happens if one sees one has been looking at what should be, or what the husband or the wife has been like, the image of him or her, or what one is like, how one should be treated? When one sees that, has an immediate insight into it, what happens? Is there a freeing, an opening, and a dropping of it, or does one immediately go on? Either continue with that image or say, well, I shouldn't really have an image. She said so yesterday. The memory of her talking and what I should be doing, an ideal of seeing, and this is more screen work, more computer work. Is it possible to listen, look, and not know what's next? Just be open, without any reaction, condemnation, acceptance, justification, nothing. So the question may come up, is that a practice? Is that the practice you advocate? It's not a practice. A practice becomes screen work. I have to do this, I should do it, I'm not doing it well, I'm doing it pretty well, I must be doing better. All the images we project on the screen. And then a moment of attention, of awareness that this is happening. Did that instant happen because one did a practice, or did it just happen? A moment of awareness that one was totally caught up in thinking, dreaming. And then I want to keep this attention, I want to keep this awareness as the thought, and the channel narrows down again into wanting and idealizing. Can it be seen instantly as it happens? So that there is an opening from moment to moment. And getting a glimpse of what we're actually like, what the people nearest to us are actually like from moment to moment. wonder whether this has been enough talking and you would like to ask some questions. Maybe some mini talks will emerge. Yes, sir.
When one goes through those experiences, what's the next step? Or is there not a next step?
You're asking, when one goes through those experiences, what is the next step? What do you mean by those experiences?
Well, I feel those same things, yet I've never met you, and it seems like you're describing or explaining those kind of things that I've experienced personally. So, do those go on, or does it change into something else?
See, when we say, I have experienced this, isn't there someone who experiences something? Me and my experience?
Yes, it is. Well, I feel it is me.
What is that me? I'm not being clever. Well, we're looking.
Yes.
I'm not trying to cut this off.
Feelings.
It's feelings?
It's awareness
Awareness? Awareness of what?
of myself and
But what is the self? What is the self that one is aware of? The body? The heart beating? You mean that? Or is it more than that?
feelings, emotions.
Emotions of
More in contact, more
emotions of what?
of experiences dealing with people,
Interacting with people and the emotions that result from those interactions.
yes,
Anger or flattery, feeling flattered, feeling good, or feeling hurt.
compassion.
Compassion. So who is angry? Who is compassionate? Is there a me that has those qualities, those feelings? Are there two me and those feelings? And if so, if that is the feeling, that there is a me that has those feelings, I want to know what that me is. Is that separate from the anger? From the compassion? From the emotion? Or is that me?
I see what you're saying. I've been identifying it as me.
And what is that process? When you say, I've been identifying it as me, what do you mean by it when you say that? What's going on in the mind?
Can't answer.
Well, you were doing it right now. You were saying, this is me. What is that? To say this is me. As far as the process in the mind is concerned, to say this is me. This anger is me. These emotions is me. Isn't that thought? Or do you feel there is some reality to that me, which is more than thought?
It seems to be going beyond thought.
So what is it? Does that grab you?
Excuse me?
Does that grab you, that question? You say it seems to be going beyond thought.
Yes.
What is beyond thought?
It's beyond thought. Well, for me, it's it's being in contact with the way I was feeling. It's like another step.
But feeling, what is the difference between feeling and thought? A thought arouses a feeling, right? Somebody calls you by a bad name. We even say the very thought of it makes me angry. The very idea of it. So thought and feeling are like that. A thought arouses a feeling, and the feeling arouses more thoughts. I'm going to tell him next time. Is that the feeling of me?
I guess, well, I've had those thoughts always, or I've had the thoughts, yet they weren't being balanced my feelings. They weren't easy.
How do you know?
I don't know.
Did you really watch?
By reflecting, yes.
Reflection is thought, is memory. And in memory emerges this whole story of me. What I remember of me yesterday and 5 years and 10 years ago, a whole string of memories, this is me, isn't it? And even now, if I think, I'm sitting here, isn't there an image, an idea, I am me? You have to watch it. Don't take my word for it. It's for you to, if you're interested, for you to watch, to observe, to grapple with. And then to come back to the question with which we started, is there an experiencer separate from his experience? Or is that just experiencing? And then the thought is, oh, I'm having a tremendous experience. That's a thought which divides a me into what I have. And I must have more of that. Thoughts and the whole conflict coming out of if I don't get more of it, and if I think others are having more of it. So leaving that alone for the moment, your question was, I've had these experiences too, or let's put it in new language, this experience has been there before. What's the next step? That's thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a moment of awareness of anger. Why not allow that to do its thing, but awareness. Not I must express it, I must control it, I must and mustn't. It's all thought, which is divisive. But what is this right now? Let me listen. No division. The listening not one hairbreadth separate from the anger. And see what happens. No one separate from it. Just attending. What is this? And I won't even call it anger now, because that's, again, memory. What is it? What's going on? And see what happens. The thought, what will happen now, is a thought. And this is how we live. We always think what's going to happen next. And then we're not here. Why can't we be here? Why do we have to think of what's going to happen next? We're trained this way. We're conditioned this way. And that's why we're constantly on the run, but never there. Because when the next moment there is, we wonder what's going to happen next. Can one become aware of this and just stop? I don't mean with willpower or control, but just wondering. Wondering which has a breadth and width and depth to it. To what on earth is happening right now? Not knowing. Yes?
Why did you stop practicing Zen? Because it sounds like some of the things you're saying about awareness and right now seems to be, very in keeping with, theories of Zen or Buddhism.
I have to give a short answer, or else it would take hours. It could take hours. I left the tradition, and not just the Zen Buddhist tradition, but tradition. because of the realization that to inquire, to question and look and listen freely, the mind could not be attached or identified or committed or anchored in anything. I've used once the metaphor of the eye. The optic nerve is connected with the retina. This is how the eye and the brain are connected. There's a point at which the optic nerve is attached to the retina. And at that spot, we don't see. There's a blind spot in the eye. We may all have taken some psychology at one time or other, or been confronted with this blind spot. It's an amazing thing when for the first time you realize there's one spot where you don't see. Now, it's just a metaphor. One shouldn't take a metaphor too far. But having lived and been attached to and identified with and defended and justified a tradition for many years myself, I realized that there was no freedom to really look. There was always something that was either left unquestioned, like a taboo, or defended. It was not possible to question and say freely what needed to be said, asked, as long as one was part of the tradition. Whole. Well, is that enough? You can ask more. I'm not making a taboo out of it. You said a lot of what you say, or what you say seems to be the same as, what did you say, Zen theory? Or what word did you use? You used a special word.
What you experience when you're meditating. Yeah. Or just sort of when you're not really aware of thinking, you're just sort of being instead of being caught up in all your thoughts. It's sort of, you have that sense of awareness, but you're not even aware that you're aware, you just are aware.
Are you?
It sort of sounded like what you were saying.
Yeah, I'm not theorizing. I want to.
I know. That was a bad word.
Yeah, yes. Because this can immediately be made into theory, and then theories compare. This is like the Zen theory or so, but the important thing is not to compare what this is similar to or different from, but to see is it so, and directly see it. Did you have your hand?
You're talking about being aware of your thoughts and feelings. I had a thought, and the thought was, when that's happening, what is that awareness? That was the thought.
What is that awareness? Yeah. And there's a very crucial question which takes very careful looking, because it may not be awareness at all. It may be thinking about thoughts. It happens ever so often. People say, gosh, I thought I was aware. I wasn't aware at all. I was just thinking. Having a new image of my old images. So now what are you asking for? You're not asking for a term. You have the term already, awareness. But the term, the word awareness, is not the real thing, is it? The word awareness is not that. So what are you asking?
It has something to do with this illusion of me, or if it is an illusion. The me is not thought, it's not the feeling.
But the me is thought and feeling.
The me is a thought and feeling, right.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Don't take my word for it.
Yes, and behind that there is this mysterious thing, awareness, which is not the thought of awareness, but something
All right.
behind there.
So what is your desire right now? To name that? or to just be sure that it's not thought, you can look. Or are you saying, is that some sublime form of the me?
That's the
A
question.
sublime form of self? Because there is someone there who's seeing.
That's the experience. There must be something there.
Follow it, trace it. If there's a feeling there's someone there, what is that? Whether there's not image and thought involved, in this feeling there's someone there. And then the question, is it possible for an awareness in which there's no thought of self? And not the idea of no self. I'm not talking of the idea of no self. We deceive ourselves instantly. And the moment the thought comes up, maybe there is such an instant of awareness, and then the thought, oh, I'm aware, now I'm really aware. That's a thought. And at that moment, there's no awareness, there's thought. And there's not to be condemned. If that condemnation comes up, see it instantly as another thought. Yes, there have been immense theories, religious theories spun around this awareness that there is a super intellect, or the Indian theory abounds with concepts for it, and man tries to put things into words, which is all right as long as it's clear that the word is not the thing, is not the real thing. That one isn't deceived by the word as being conveying understanding, the understanding of verbalization. So find out when you sit or walk or stand, whatever you may be doing, what is this feeling that there is somebody there? It goes so deep in all human beings, not just in you. It's one of our deepest, I don't want to say illusion, because that word already is so weighted, isn't it? So loaded. We don't want to be deluded. Convictions, opinions, concepts, that there is someone here. I'm not talking about something, the body, with all its functions of hearing, seeing, memory, intellect, but the feeling, this is me. Which is it? Well, what is it right now as we're saying this? It's a thought, isn't it? Do you see that?
Just wet seated.
No division, no duality. And a clear understanding that the thought, I see it as a thought, which makes that, which creates that duality. But that can also be a theory. Do you see that? You know, we can follow all this. Thought creates duality. We can follow all this. It's so logical. It makes so much sense. It's so reasonable, and no understanding is still all work on that computer screen. Yes.
My question is, who is it who came from Buffalo to here this morning? And what was the motivation to make the journey, to speak it all, to lead a retreat, etc.?
On the ticket that I was given. It said Toni Packer. And there was this body with this sweater on, which incidentally is the same color. It was not planned. I'm not trying to joke away your question. So who came? The name is, I just said it. There's a body and an age to it, a certain form and memory, past experiences, birthplace, language, and so forth. Are you asking me, do you have that feeling of me as separate from you? Does that happen to you? Of course it happens to me. Is it happening right now? No, it's just talking. I think, oh man, I'm talking terrific. Then I can't listen to you anymore. Then I'm just occupied with the screen and the image that appears and try to enhance it. What was your motive for coming here? I received a letter last year to come here. I said, no, I can't. There was no time. And there was no time, but we kept it in mind. I received the letter again. There was some time on the calendar. So here I am. What is the motive? My students or their students, we're human beings working with each other right now. But one has to watch it. One can say this and not act this way. And if one doesn't watch, the me takes one over. Either there's attention or there's me. It's very simple, really. There's no attention, it's all me. Right? When there's attention, you see the whole sorrow of the me, really. The fear, the illusion of it, the self-deception, the wanting to be this and that, and then seeing it is just like you have a piece of poison ivy in your hand and you see it and you drop it. But if you don't see it, you burn yourself. You think it's a pretty flower. But there was something behind your question, wasn't there? What were you trying to find out? Are you trying to ask, are you different from us? Are you saying that, asking that? The answer is no.
No, that's not what I was saying. In therapy, sometimes I'm asked to come and be with someone.
You're a therapist or a client?
Therapist and client.
Yeah.
And sometimes I ask myself what my motivation is.
Yes, that's very good.
Actually, I would say most of the time.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm asked, I ask myself what my motivation
Yes.
is. The most worthwhile part of your answer for me was when you said, I simply go and I see what happens.
Yeah.
That touched me.
Yeah. But it's very good, very important to question, what is my motivation here? Because if you don't ask that question, go ahead.
Behind the question perhaps was a wondering, when one, as I've heard about you, sheds a lot of what was around, how do I say this?
Just look at it. Take time and look at it.
When one, as you say, steps away from tradition, is that accurate, as you said? Is it desire to speak? Is it desire to sit where you're sitting right now? Is it what moves you?
Yeah. Yes.
Is that clear?
It's a good question. I understand your question. You wondered whether the question was clear?
Yes.
Yes. And one has to look. Is it desire? One imagines something nice that one would like to do, would like to have an audience in front of one, and one goes out, go for it. And there's trouble with that. There's constant, eternal trouble. I never started in this, even in the traditionalist way. I was asked to do this, even from the very beginning. I had never gone out to get this job or to become a teacher, so I was asked to do it. And it hit me like a 10-ton brick. But I don't want to become personal about this. This is not the important thing. To question the motive. And in the questioning, if you really see there's a totally self-centered, self-aggrandizing motive, you may see it and say, okay, I'm still going for it. This is what I want to do. Then you do it. But if you see the danger of it, then you may not go at all. The whole thing may drop. Or the motive may melt like snow, on a warm pavement. It melts. It hits and it's gone. And you go to the patient, and you don't know. He asks you to come, or you know if the person wants you to be there. And you go, and let this thing evolve. Not know what you're going to do. Then the mind is open and free, and then you may not do anything, or it'll happen, it'll evolve. But if you want that patient to get better because you go there, it's trouble. For him and for you, and for everybody around you. But we're not trained this way. We're trained to want to achieve results and to do good and to help people. There's no precedence in our whole life to not know and to just start being together and see what happens. Let a question evolve and lead one. It's much harder because we hold on to our grids in therapy. It's so nice if you have certain, grids, or a certain conceptual framework according to which you can ask questions and categorize the patient and have answers. It's very relatively easy, but not to have any of that. Then you really have to listen to each other. Pay attention. Maybe that in itself is the therapy for both therapist and client. Pay attention, and not this kind of thing, like this, the same level. Because two human beings. That's love. That's real love, isn't it? This is not love. I'm up here and I'm down here and you're up here. There's image in that and all kinds of division, separation. Yes? Did you ask?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Zen master in the Cambridge Zen School.
I couldn't understand.
I was Zen master in the Cambridge Zen School where we were just in here. Reverend wants enlightenment. And he has said that, well, I'm going to interpret enlightenment as it's just my personal opinion.
I'm afraid I don't quite understand the question yet. You would like to know...
Some people can. I've seen it happen, and I probably am guilty of this myself. You're just moment to moment, so you become mindless. It becomes almost irresponsible. It becomes, I'm just in a moment, so it doesn't really matter what I do as long as I'm paying attention to what I do.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
So, Sensitiv's teaching is, correct life. Pay attention, but also correct life, correct situation, do what's right.
How can you live correctly
Right.
if you don't pay attention?
You can't,
These are not two separate things.
Okay, no, but I'd like to hear your comments on that.
For one thing, to say, I'm attentive, I'm in a moment, this can be a tremendously narrow little thing. One may be very attentive to the little plot when it's gardening and totally unaware of all the other people around one. The weather, the animals, the world situation. Very attentive to... one person wrote me a letter recently. He said, I've just written 2 checks. One very small check for your newsletter that costs $2, and a $500 check to the IRS. And he says, I was totally attentive in both cases. And yet he says there's a difference between those two things. He's actually very serious. He says, in one case, I'm sending money to be spent on the Contras in Nicaragua, etc. He listed quite a few things that he's very concerned about. And he called that conscience. He says, attention is not enough. There has to be something more. Because if I'm just attentive, then I'm just writing out this check, and there's no... there has to be conscience. And you say your teacher says there has to be right life. But let's find out again what attention is, and not attention in a small little theater, little stage, and the little audience, which is us, and the curtains. That's really concentrating on something. I would use that word for it. It's not attention, it's not awareness. The word awareness, the way I would like to use that word, is non-exclusive, not to have any boundaries in that. To be aware of what's happening totally, wholly, not a little fragment here, and the next moment I'm attentive to that fragment, and then to that fragment, and my life is just one series of paying attention to different fragments. So, profoundly important question, what is whole, complete attention, in which there is no fragmentation? And out of that comes right living, compassion, not interfering violently with others under the guise of whatever all excuses we have for interfering violently with others. Which means not now to strive for this whole attention. Now we have our thing again, we are conditioned to this, we have an ideal now let's have a practice and get to that. That's not attention. Attention is to see how fragmented we are from moment to moment, to become aware of that without judgment. And when the judgment comes, because it comes like that, instantly to see it, to be aware that there was judgment, and not to judge the judgment, because it goes on endlessly. And if you say, can you give me a practice to get that? I say, watch what the mind is doing. It wants a practice. Just see that. That's enough. seeing is its own, I don't know what word to give it. Seeing is the right action. You may act or may not act, but without seeing, which is not self-centered, fragmented, there is no right action. There's only self-centered action in one degree or another. I'm not saying that condemnatorily. We all participate in that. As far as you started out, you said, my teacher doesn't use the word enlightenment. I don't use that word either. It's been overused and abused so sorely that it's good to leave it. At least I feel that way. It also gives the feeling of sort of an end station, a terminal. You have arrived. After that, everything is perfect. These are all, that's what the brain creates. Rather to watch what the brain creates and not be caught up in it than to be striving for all these productions, brain production. Which does not mean cynicism. I'm not being cynical about it.
You have really answered my question. Thank you.
Hey.
Don't people do sitting at your center?
Beg your pardon?
Don't people do sitting at your center?
Yeah.
Isn't that a practice? Or
It depends.
it's something, isn't it? I mean, it's an aid.
It's sitting.
It's an aid to awareness, perhaps.
I don't know. I could never say that. I would never ever say this aids that.
So
Because you can sit all your lifetime and never see anything except the light. See yourself as a terrific sitter and how many years you've put in and stuff. I mean, there's no end to your fabrications.
So why are you doing it?
You should come out and ask each one. Actually, you'd be surprised on an ordinary day. Come in the morning, there's one person here, maybe another person there, maybe nobody, and then somebody comes in. Nobody has to sit. And when you really don't have to sit, you're amazed how few people sit. And then when you really go and sit, then it's not because you have to sit anymore, or because something has happened. But you have to go through this to drop all the compulsions, and mind you, you can be rebelliously not sitting. You know. I'm rebelling against your old compulsion. That's the same thing. It's not free. It's not. It has the compulsion in it. It has it's the same thing. But you want to ask something more, didn't you? Isn't that a practice? You said. What is the problem?
Something of value, or something that's. Well, do you think that what you're talking about could be done without sitting? As a foundation or support to it. Do you think people could generate the energy to carry out this awareness?
Do people generate the energy?
The energy will come up, however you want to put it.
Well, I think it's worth looking at. It's certainly clear if one looks that thought can create tremendous energy, can it? An inspiring thought, an inspiring goal, an alluring goal, either to get to full enlightenment or get to the moon, can create tremendous energy, all coming from thought. And then when that thought, it has fizzled out, when it has now been told there is no goal or so, and then there's no energy. But why are we dependent on thoughts stimulating us to generate energy? Or can one begin to watch how one wastes it, how energy is wasted from moment to moment? And if in this watching, you're serious about it, you want to find out how do I waste energy? How do I spend the day? What do I do with energies? And if the question is serious, then there will be attention. And that attention is energy. It's the energy that accrues from watching a waste that doesn't take place anymore because it's being watched. If you really watch something intensely, something changes. You don't pursue it. You pursue it if you don't watch. If you're not attentive, then we pursue from habit or from desire and pleasure. But if there's the intensity of observing, that gathers energy. But you wouldn't say this comes from me. You wouldn't think of that. If you think it comes from me, then it's a thought. And that already fizzles out a lot of energy, or also gives you a tremendous boost, which is sort of like an injection, which peters out again. But coming back to where we have the center right now in Springwater, one side of the sitting room is all windows from top to bottom, and it's facing the east. To come in there some morning and sit, you don't have to have any motive or want anything or need anything. It's all there. You may think, oh, tomorrow I want to see that sunrise again, and you go in there and maybe it's cloudy and foggy, so if you're waiting for the sunrise, then there's disappointment again. But you can watch all of that and let there just be attention to motives, hopes, disappointments, expectations, theories. Illumine it all, let it all be seen in doing nothing. No effort. There's tremendous energy when there's no effort. I want this, I want that. But to see when it comes up, and to see it immediately. If you don't see it immediately, you pursue it.
Doesn't sitting assist that watching?
I'd like to try right now just to stand up. Let me stand up and find out. This is good.
You spent a lot of years sitting.
I know. It's not quite fair, is it? I know someone recently, a person who has sat for many, many years, 10, 15 years. See, after you stand up, you get a cramp. And she has gone through the severest family problems with husband and child. And she's a nurse. And she said, this practice, or whatever you want to call it, this is every moment. If there's not attention every moment, there's just insanity. to just be with it and look at everything. And the family has worked out all right. It's been a tremendous thing for all three of them. And one time she says, "Why do you talk so much about sitting? This has nothing to do with sitting." I said, "Wait a minute. I don't talk much about sitting. People blame me, why do you talk so little about sitting?" But here was a person who was just ablaze with this attention that had to happen while she was nursing children, while she was with her husband, or while he was not with her, with the child. If there wasn't this moment-to-moment awareness, everything was falling apart. And she sits too, but if this is only confined to your little morning and afternoon sitting, and to the week retreat that you go to, and then see, this is the tremendous question. If we can't be attentive as we stand next to each other in the subway, or at the workplace, standing or walking. You say you're evading the question. Don't you think I'm evading the question? Doesn't sitting have something to do with it? I don't know. I'll say this. If I lie in bed at night and there's a host of thoughts about something, to sit up, it's easier for the thoughts to drop than lying in bed prone. I've found that out for myself. But right now, there was no difference at all. It was the same, whatever. And in Springwater, there's more and more people who like to sit on chairs during meetings. It used to be that people felt they had to sit in a cross-legged posture on these cushions and so have the right energy, and we're finding that there's the same kind of energy when you sit on chairs together. Some people haven't sat in years and they come to a retreat and they say, it's all there. And then some people sit day in and day out and get more and more discouraged over it. See, we can make too much of something and miss the important thing, which is how we're living, relating with each other on this globe, in the small area and globally. And let no one say that how we live on a small scale has nothing to do with how we live globally. It has everything to do with it. If there's division, separation, conflict in an individual human being, that affects everyone. You know, also doing a lot of sitting, that is the real fertile ground for developing tremendous images about yourself. How good you are. I've done a lot of counseling with people, a lot of marriage counseling, where one member was sitting and the other was not, and the marriage broke up. Because he was so way lofty up there, and she couldn't keep up with him. In her eyes, and he may have said, or it could be the other way around. I'm not saying it's him or her. Person may not have intentionally meant this, but exuded it with his or her sitting. Of being this spiritual person. So much danger and damage has been done. And never seeing that this is an image and the poison of it, the separation of it. Because if there's really meditation going on, then one is nothing. Really nothing, not a thing, which means no separation and no clinging to this tremendous energy. If we don't cling to it or grab for it or fear for it, it's there. It's in every tree and stone and drop of water and breath of air. everything we generate. What we're doing, we have to look at all of that. It's so crucial. This is what I mean by questioning. Everything. Have another question? Somebody else? I'll come back to you. Yes.
You talked about fear.
Yes.
You talked about how that makes us attached to the person or
Yes.
the idea.
Yes.
I wondered if you would have anything to say about dissolving or letting go of that fear.
Yes. The next time fear comes up, can one listen to it? Feel it, attend to it, see it, whatever word you're using, doesn't matter. But not fall into one's habitual reaction, pushing it away, suppressing it, escaping from it, clutching something. And to see those habitual, to track them like a detective, to see those reactions. Here I was grabbing for something or escaping. And by seeing it, not to pursue the escape, not to pursue the control, the suppression, which means tremendous openness, tremendous vulnerability. Just like listening to this right now, completely open. Because that doesn't hurt, but fear hurts. So to feel the pain of it and not to brace against it, we immediately, whenever there's pain, there's immediately a habitual response, bracing against it. And to feel that, how the body braces against pain, the pain of fear. And to wonder what it is. You don't know. I don't know either. We have to meet it. It may not feel comfortable. It may come up at a moment you want to sleep. And then to say, oh, I want to sleep. I don't want to face this fear right now. That's escape. If the fear is there, why not listen to it? Why not feel it? Why not ask it, what are you? And then be quiet. You know, we can ask a lot of questions, but we're never quiet to listen. We like to repeat a question over and over and over. That becomes in itself an escape. Well, what is this? And then listen, openly, undefended. May not go away, may go away, I don't know. Find out. Doesn't mean don't ever read a book again or go to a movie or call up a friend. If you don't repress it, the fear, the discomfort will still be there. If you don't repress it. So be in touch with it. Be in touch with it all the time, because we're afraid almost all the time for something. If we're really open, vulnerable, undefended. Then you won't grab onto your husband or your child for fear of losing them. You'll see them as human beings.
There are retreats at your center, aren't there?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not my center.
Okay, the center
Yeah.
there. That's kind of like something that happens. I don't know if you'd want to call it a practice or what, but it's something in that seems people
We don't
there
call it a
seem to
practice.
want to do it.
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like you're saying that it's not a good thing, or it's not a useful thing to belong to a tradition. Is that what you're saying?
I found this out for myself. I'm not saying believe this now. And you have to find this out, verify it for yourself.
Right.
Not trying to brainwash you.
It just seems to me that at least the traditions that I've explored just have things that are useful to them that I do, like Zen. And I just have trouble understanding what's wrong with that.
Well,
What's not useful about that?
if you're not questioning it, and you say, please don't disturb me with your question, I don't want to disturb you with anything. Go ahead.
Okay.
If you want to question something with me, then come.
Okay. I want to question why you say that. If it's from my personal experience, it's something that's benefited me. So I have a hard time. I have a hard time saying this because I see the great value in what you're saying, and in not getting attached to traditions, but at the same time, I guess what bothers me is that people might feel all of a sudden guilty that they're in a tradition, or somehow that it's a bad thing.
Well,
And
if you
actually
do,
it's
then
a good
question the
thing.
guilt. And why do you feel guilty? Look at it. It's anything is worth looking at. Feel guilty because somebody else says something? Because now one is caught between two authorities, the authority of one's own tradition and the authority of this person who says it's no good to be in a tradition. Just see it all. What is happening? Why does one have to follow any authority? Why does one have to follow? Last words of the Buddha, if they indeed were his last words, were be a lamp unto yourself. Don't take refuge in anything. But we don't live that way. We look for other lamps and for refuges. And we also think eventually, when I'm developed enough, then I'll be able to let go of these other lamps and refuges. But it never happens. Or does it? And then there's the next lifetime and the lifetime after that. It's all in time. But this thing of insight, understanding, freedom, that is not in time. It does not have the postponement of time. If you feel tradition has been good for me, I feel this way, I personally want to know, what do I mean by that? What has it done for me? And question and look at it. But for that, I must already be free to look. I must not already have the starting point of needing to defend something or wanting to come out knowing I still keep it. Then it's a weighted investigation. So, but you may not need to question this way, then you won't. I'm not trying to force anyone. How could I? What this work is all about is to understand this mind so that there is no self-deception and other deception. If there's no understanding, no attention, we persist in what we've been doing for thousands of years. Deceive ourselves, deceive others. With this idea of me and you, mine and theirs, and the clashes. Politically, religiously, ideologically, on a small scale and on the large scale. Other questions? Yes.
You say that attachments lead to deceptions. I think you're attached to a tradition. You can deceive yourself through it. What about attachments to people? I mean, are you saying to be free you have to detach yourself from everything and face your fear of loneliness by completely absolving everything?
No, you need to start where you are and look. If you start out with all these goals that you mentioned, I must be detached and I must not this and that, you watch attachment, watch fear, see it as it operates in yourself and the people you're in a relationship with. Understand it from direct insight, from moment to moment.